This video is entitled the multi-vector lift. So essentially what I'm talking about is the direction of elevation for the facelift that I do. There's so many videos I can shoot. One is on, is it a deep plane facelift? Is it a SMAS facelift? What is the difference? What's a deep neck lift? Am I doing both of those procedures? When do I do one or the other? I'll give you a very quick summary of that so I can target and focus on the one central aspect of this topic that I want to discuss today. So basically there's two major types of facelifts, deep plane and SMAS. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this. Suffice it to say, I do a deep plane facelift because essentially what that means is I'm releasing the ligaments so I get a much more elegant, durable result than what a SMAS lift can do. I used to do a SMAS lift. I could not get really good, durable results with that technique, so I've abandoned that many years ago. A deep neck lift is when suffice it to say, when I pull up on the neck and I look in there, I still see very much fullness in the neck. Usually it's due to the glands and the deep fat tissue. I know I'm not going to get a great result. I need to shape or carve that component besides lifting the neck. So I do a deep plane facelift on everyone. Plus or minus a deep neck lift is when I pull up on the neck and I still see fullness as residual there, then I will need to do that. I'm going to do a more detailed video on that subject as a separate topic when I have a few minutes to do that. But today I'm going to talk about the multi-vector lift. A lot of marketing terms out there that you hear about, different types of names of facelifts. I don't think that a lot of times these terms are very helpful because they're really used for marketing. I'm here to talk about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it in order to create a good result. So the vector of elevation to me is important. I don't do a purely side lateral lift and I don't do a purely vertical lift. And there are a lot of reasons why. First of all, I want to explain to you about the new concept of the jawline, which I've done a shorter video on. I'm going to do a little bit more extended discussion of that so you sort of understand what I'm trying to achieve with this multi-vector lift. Multi means multiple directions, vector means direction of elevation, so each of my vectors are different. The vector in the jawline is about a 60 to 70% elevation rather than a vertical 90 degrees. So let's talk about aesthetically why that is. So when we look at the jawline, traditionally when we look at the jawline, we're focused on two things. We're looking at a jowl and we're looking at platysmal banding. And that's the two things that the traditional facelift has been focused on. And of course my lift should address those issues. But the new facelift is, if you look at a 20-year-old jawline, you look at a 60-year-old jawline, there's something else going on with it. A younger jawline has a very articulated, clear posterior mandibular border, and there is a very well-defined jawline. So what happens with the jawline as we get older, it actually starts to shorten. And so what we see is this accumulation of tissue in the front, but what we're missing is the absence of tissue here, or the effacement of it. So either there is an accumulation of tissue hanging that causes this area to be obscured, or the fact that the person is bony and thin, but that gravitational impact blurs that line. So part of a good lift today is not just reconstituting the jowl and the platysmal band component, which is a given in my opinion. It also requires giving a longer structured jawline. So to recreate a longer structured jawline, we need to create a better gonial angle. The gonial angle is back here. And we need to create a better submental hollow. So submental hollow means all you gotta do is put your finger in here and that creates a better definition. So as I alluded to earlier, one of the things I do is I remove some of the submandibular gland as part of a deep neck lift. Again, that's going to be a separate video. When I do it, how I do it, when I don't do it, what are the risks, limitations, procedure, etc. But just understand that part of my way to create a better jawline here is sometimes some excision or shaving of the submandibular gland, digastrics, and deep fat. But the other part is the angle of elevation. So if you do a pure vertical lift going this way, you're going to abut or efface this component and not create the jawline definition. So what I do here instead is I do a platysmal split coming down this way, and I do a platysmal hammock where I'm able to now push this part under the jawline to tuck that area underneath, and that, as you can see, is about a 60-degree elevation. I attach it into the mastoid component, and sometimes I do a little bit of shaving down into the mastoid so that I can create a much deeper recess. So when I can create this sling going up this way, it creates a much better elevation to this area than a pure vertical elevation can accomplish. And so that's why I do about a 60-70 degree elevation going back in this direction. In the jawline, I believe that in order to create a crisper jawline, I'm pushing that angle back up around also 60-70 degrees and anchoring to this area called the Bichat's fascia. So when you're looking at anchor points, you want to be closer to your anchor point rather than farther from your anchor point. The closer you are to your anchor point, the more stable that result is. Of course, the number one thing you want to do is release ligaments, which again is part of my deep plane facelift. So the Bichat's fascia, which is right here, and mastoid fascia are proximal. If I want to lift a vertical pure elevation across this zone, I have to reach all the way up to temporalis, which is way up here. So this part would have to suspend to that area. I used to do what's called a quick lift or a loop lift, where I'm trying to pull up this whole zone in a vertical fashion, but I've got such great distance that that result is not as sustainable. So when I do a 60-70 degree elevation across this area, I can support and sustain that area to hold on the Bichat's fascia. As I come up to this area, the temporalis fascia is the best anchor point for my lift up here. This component, where the deep plane facelift, you're releasing something called the zygomatic ligament. Hopefully this is not too difficult understanding. When you release this ligament across here, you want to anchor the midface and this component to the temporalis fascia. So this is almost not quite a 90 degree vertical, but about an 80 to 90 degree vertical elevation up this way, so that I can take that groove, the cheek, and that upper lower jowl region up into this region. And by doing this multi-vector elevation, I get benefits of each of those vector elevations. Now, I could spend probably 2 hours going into detail with this, but I just wanted you to understand, cutting through some of the marketing terminology that's out there, how I do it, what I do, and focusing really just on one very small aspect of the entire procedure with a short overview of the other elements, which I will dive, I promise I'll do this, I'll dive deeper into each of those components on a separate video.